Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Haddonfield Talks, presented by Haddonfield Safe. My name is Chad Levine. I am here with I'm going to call you my lovely co-host, Chris. Can I call you that?
That works.
My fellow Haddonfield Safe guy over there, and my support system. Chris, you're my moral support system. Christopher Tempano, fellow Haddonfield resident. And of course, our inaugural guest, our special guest of the night here, Mr. Frank Troy. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How you guys doing?
We're good, man. We are good.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me kind of late. How was your son's baseball game? That was the reason why we started a little bit late tonight.
Yeah, baseball's interesting at this age. It really is. It's funny, and people who are watching this that are from the town know sports is super intense here. So, like, I feel like you have to try and maintain the innocence up until a certain level. So the answer is it's a great fun. He has an awesome time, but I can see him get frustrated when he doesn't get the hits. What about your Chris? Same thing?
Yeah, it's the same deal. They're 1 year younger than yours, so they're 7. Yeah. And they do great. They expire, though. So baseball's tough. Like, we get to that 7 o'clock mark, and the kids but it's good. It's a lot of fun.
So I want to give everyone background to Haddonfield Talks, give a little bit of history on Haddonfield Safe, and then really talk about the episode and intro Frank and talk about the stuff we're doing. So when Haddonfield Safe began, we really felt very strongly about finding ways to better connect the community with what was going on with the borough. That was one of the disconnects we felt at that point had to do with safety. And since then, we've made a lot of strides and we've got a lot of wins. And I'm actually going to let Chris talk tonight a little bit about his conversation earlier with the chief and maybe talk about what the cameras have done, which is awesome. Really excited to hear more about that. But really what Haddonfield Talks has come to for us is the ability for us to now have conversations with people in all walks of life and different influencers and stakeholders in the Haddonfield community and engage with everyone else. Because I don't know about you, Frank, and I'm gonna let you speak on this. It's very hard when you're raising a family, especially in this town, to get to all the meetings, right? And to really understand all the issues that are going on.
Yep.
And the meetings themselves, they're tough to make. They're in the evening. They're in Barrow Hall. So we're hoping that these conversations being projected online will allow people to be better informed of what's going on in Haddonfield. So that's kind of the goal. I'm going to do the disclaimer to make Chris happy. Chris is our attorney and resident guy here. This is not to endorse anyone specifically. We're happy to speak with anyone during this election season. It's coincidentally that we're launching this during election season, but we'd love to talk to everyone running. So Haddonfield Safety at Gmail. I'm pretty easy to find as well. We would love to have you on, guys. Reach out. We don't endorse or recommend or whatever political word you want to use at this point. We're literally here. Frank's a good guy. He reached out to us when we started Haddonfield Safe. He's been a big supporter of the stuff we've been doing. And since Frank's spearheading public safety, I thought it would be very cool to bring you on, Frank, and talk about the thing. So let's talk about that. Frank, give everyone a background about yourself, kind of everything you've been doing since you've been in Haddonfield, and, give us that background for people that don't know you that well.
Okay. Yeah. And I'll and thanks again, guys, for having me. And I'll keep it short. And it's nice to be in the early stages of this. I feel like I'm here with like Theo Vaughn and like Joe Rogan, like when they were like first starting out, like, oh, someday when these guys make it, I'm like, oh, I remember back in 2025, I was in my kitchen talking to them about Haddonfield safety, But
who knew it'd be such a sexy topic, Frank?
Exactly, yeah. But just remember when. But so thanks for having me. So I'll give you just a little bit about myself and then open this up for questions and dialogue. But so Frank Troy, I'm originally from the next town over, 2nd Avenue in Haddon Heights. My dad was an attorney here in Haddonfield for years, the corner of just down the street from my house, the corner of Grove and Lake Street. Went to Bishop Eustace for high school, graduated, went to college. Graduated college. Between like junior and senior year, I applied to officer candidate school for the Navy. Just kind of had a passion to serve our country. So I was accepted into the program. I spent 6 years on active duty, served on a guided missile cruiser, the USS Anzio, served in Iraq and Kosovo. Loved serving our country. I just didn't really want to do it for 20 years. So I started getting my MBA at night at University of San Diego when I was stationed out there. Completed that and then started the civilian world where I
was that very Top Gun-esque out there, Frank?
Yeah. I could embellish my stories if you want, but let's try and keep it honest. I'm an honest politician. It's hard these days. So in civilian business, I spent now the better part of 20 some years here as a turnaround specialist. So for one company, I worked there for like 15 years. Then I switched to private equity for about 7 years. Then I've been with my most recent company as a vice president in charge of operations for the last year or so. And for a while there, what I was doing is like every 2 years they would move me to a different location, and it was taking over an underperforming business. So you'd focus on applying Lean Six Sigma principles, improving sales, whatever the case may be, helping with marketing plans, and just turning businesses around. I really enjoyed it. You guys are parents. I'm a parent. It was fun until our daughter was born, and then you start realizing, all right, reloading every 2 years isn't that much fun. So we moved to Baltimore. We lived down there for about 10 years prior to moving up here, and moved back to Haddonfield after a 25-year hiatus from New Jersey back in 2016. Started getting involved with the town. I first interviewed for the commissioner position after John Moscatelli left. And they said that I was a very close second place, which is probably what they tell all the losers. They're like, if we were looking for two, you would have been the guy, but that's not how it works. So, but that's okay. I'll say I came in second place to make myself feel better at night. So I didn't get that position, but it gave me some time to think about if it's something I really want to do. So about a year and a half or 2 years later, I never really had any aspirations to go into politics, but I just thought that I could improve things in town here, make things a little bit better. So I ran and I was elected. Really enjoyed it. My personal life, I'm an avid surfer, lifelong surfer, avid golfer. I'd say my mediocre golfer, probably. I'm 25 years married. We had our 25th wedding anniversary back in September.
Oh, congrats.
Daughter. Thank you. One daughter. She's a freshman at University of Delaware, studying neuroscience. A really good kid. And so I've been the last 4 years in charge of public works. And I've really enjoyed that role. I've learned a lot in that role in public works, but it's probably the business side of me and just kind of the culture I've had for the last 20 years of it's healthy to kind of change the routine every now and then and kind of flex a different muscle. So I really would like to have public safety. I think there's some improvements that we can do there. I think that it'd be nice to have a fresh set of eyes take over public works and capitalize on the things we've built upon there and take it to a new level. So I've had a lot of events so far this year, some door-to-doors, whatever the case may be. I'm trying to reach out to residents any way I can just to introduce myself or just kind of reaffirm if people know me that I'm committed for the position and just get out there. So again, I really appreciate you making the time for me tonight. And that's me in a nutshell. I figure we'll go into details about my experiences.
Yeah, cool. Well, Chris, do you want me to start picking and prodding, or do you want to say something before I learn my mouth?
No, just briefly to reiterate what you said at the top of the call was about transparency and having open, long-form conversations. We feel this is the most productive way to get to know a candidate or a neighbor is to sit down and talk. Hopefully this conversation isn't bent one way or another. I can't say we won't disagree or agree on everything, but I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. Looking forward to our conversation. And really my first question would be, do you have a comprehensive vision of public safety for Haddonfield specifically.
Ooh, good one to start with.
Yeah. Well, you're going to start with a hard one, and then just the other ones will be like lollipop questions. So, what's your favorite color?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that by and large, we've made a lot of improvements in public safety over the years. I think one area of improvement really is communication, and when we had the rash of theft of car thefts last year, which then turned into break-ins of houses to steal car keys and fobs and that sort of thing. I think quite honestly and unfortunately that will happen again. I mean, people will regroup, they'll have smarter tactics, they'll kind of go about it again. There was one just recently that took place that I believe it may be AJ Brown. I'm not really sure, but it seems like the timelines kind of lined up there. But you're gonna see it again. And one thing about criminals is they really do adapt and overcome, and they get better each time at breaking the law. So the lesson learned from that is I think there's certain things that we can put in place, and I kind of do like short, medium, and long term. So short term, I think one thing we should be working on right now is basically having people take their cars off the streets and just let everyone know, fair notice, that within next week we're going to be enforcing it. It's an ordinance that's already on the books. We don't have to do anything. It doesn't require a commissioners meeting, but put it out there and just say the reason for it is that it makes it easier to find bad guys if there are no cars in the street except for a dark colored Mercedes that rolls up in the middle of the night and the license plates on it match a Ford F-150. You have a problem there, and if it just rolled up at 2 a.m, they're probably here to do harm. So there's certain things like that, like kind of short-term things you can just put in place. I'd say short and medium term, and you guys did a good job of this with your following, is doing a survey about resident safety and their comfort level. And if memory serves here, the residents feel unsafe. This was taken around this time last year, 50%. And residents aren't well informed, 83%. So, a medium-term goal I would put there is to make a 15-point improvement in a 6-month period of both those measurements.
Well, they're probably directly related, right? Don't you think if they were more well informed, they would feel more protected?
Exactly, and and I think that we have all different means of communication that we can capitalize on. This is a good example. I've never actually done a live Facebook stream. I've done Zoom meetings and also other things, but never this. This could be something that we can employ, or a different technology where we can provide more frequent updates. Mm-hmm. We can use the Haddonfield Happenings app. I think we've done a good job with that. But that app is, it's not the most user-friendly thing. It's not the slickest device on earth, but it is very effective. There's about 4,000 followers of it, and you can get information out immediately. So I think that's one that
before we get to that, I want to ask you about that. So if I understand correctly, right, and again, you have to understand, and this is admittedly so, Chris and I came in towards the end of the current regime, if you will, and not understanding the way certain policies work. Like the average citizen doesn't understand all the inner workings. And it's part of the stuff I wanted to get from you tonight, outside of just safety, was how the borough operates, how we function as a government, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as dissemination of information currently goes, right? Currently, especially safety related information, most of it is channeled from the mayor. How does it work? I have no idea how it works, actually. Can you tell me how it works?
Yes, so it goes from primarily from the mayor to Joanna, who has access to the app, and she's the communications person. There are probably other people who have, I believe Sharon and probably a couple other people have access to the app.
And for people that don't know who these people are, there's the mayor, and then there's a chief communications person, right? And you got to dummy it down a little bit because not everyone knows.
So Joanna's in charge of communications, and then Sharon is our administrator. So, the Walsh Act form of government that we have in Haddonfield, easy for me to say. Haddonfield, for example, is 3 commissioners, party unaffiliated, and then you have an administrator who is kind of like the business manager of the borough, so to speak. And then each of the commissioners has their own respective operations. So I was public works, for example. Colleen had public safety, and then Kevin and now Dave have finance. So, I would say, and I would be, very much a strong endorser of this, is that, make the app and the communications a little more free flowing. And some of these things are very prescripted, like from a police standpoint, especially if you have initial report of an incident, you're not going to report the person's name, either like the accused or the victim. You're going to put brackets around, it took place in this general vicinity. This is what we heard. I think the sooner you get the information out there, the better off you are.
So right now there's this app that the residents can download, and the information is coming directly from. That's the quickest way to get information from Borough Health at this time, right?
Yep. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. Now there's probably better means out there, but this is the one we put in place probably about 2 years ago, and we do have a lot of people who've downloaded the app, and it's gone from, like, when we had the storms, the bad storms last summer, like late June, around the 4th of July, in real time. For example, my neighbor tried getting onto Patco and it was closed down. She walked back and said, "Oh, it's closed." In real time, I let Joanna know, and within 30 seconds, Joanna had updated it saying Patco is closed. So, so the information flows pretty quickly.
And I'm going to stop you right there. Kimberly, by the way, Kimberly just messaged on Facebook. There's no call to join, but we're actually live on Facebook right now. So if there's anything that you want to ask Frank or have us discuss with him, you can throw it in the comments, and we can as long as Hi, Kimberly.
Hey, Kimberly, how you doing?
Okay, got it. So the app, I got all that. And sorry, I'm going to cut you off a bunch just to make sure that this is a little bit enticing. I don't want it to be just
the app is one-way communication.
Yeah, so it's the
app, real-time communication, be it like video updates or improved technology. I'm sure there's better technology out there.
Has there ever been video updates from anyone?
So we have done video updates on things like parking and stuff like that, where Chief Cutler had had talked and described something. But I think there's something very impactful about having a uniformed police officer give an update. And having been a uniformed person myself at one point in my life, like 40 pounds ago, it's something very impactful to have someone in their dress blues giving an update and talking very sternly about crime being committed and how the town is not going to not stand for crime. And I think putting that out there, I think discussing in general forms the tactics that we're taking, not going into detail about we're going to be patrolling this street between 2 and 4 a.m. and stuff like that, like not giving away the secrets. But you in a small suburb like ours, you're not going to be able to police every single area. But if you make the presence more known, if you speak very
sorry, one more. Kimberly, it's just the comments. We can't hear you. Sorry. She's here again. She doesn't see her. There she is.
If you're speaking very sternly, and if you're giving clear warning to people, and you let it be known that crime will not be tolerated in Haddonfield, and you change your tactics and you make your tactics a little more well known, that some nights you're turning on lights but you're not using sirens, some nights you have someone on a bike, some nights you have, if you're constantly changing these tactics, and it gets to be too confusing to do business, so to speak, in Haddonfield, they'll target other locations, and I don't want
I want to ask you an honest question. I want to ask you an honest question, and I'm giving you an opinion, right? As someone who's never really gotten, let's say someone's novice to the town, never got involved with any form of association, board, group, whatever. How do you feel Haddonfield as a whole is in making it easy? And this is not an opinion, but it's just I want your view on it, in helping residents to get involved. Is it something that is easy to do? Is it something that is hard to navigate? What's your opinion on that?
I think it is. Haddonfield is actually difficult to get people to get involved and and attend meetings and, kind of get up to speed. I think the biggest reason is you have a lot of younger families in town. And I was just talking to my neighbor. She was walking by my house when I was out front earlier, and I just asked her how things are going. And she's like, "Oh, because I feel like all I do is race around every single day, dropping my kids off at fields or picking them up from school or getting groceries." So I mean, so if you say, "Oh, that's great. Hey, would you like to join the planning board?" And every Tuesday, be locked up from 7 to 10 p.m. and it's tough. So, I think and we've done I think a pretty good job of revamping the website and whatever else. But I really think it would. I think it would be a good idea to, enlist people kind of like yourself to say, like, how do you get the information out there a little bit better? So you have the commissioners meetings, but most people aren't going to watch a 2-hour commissioner meeting to learn about what's happening with, the big belly trash cans in downtown Haddonfield. But if you could find a way to put little vignettes about, here are some of the, the 6 major topics we discussed, and here are some opinion pieces. You can see the rest of it online.
Frank, are you suggesting a Sports Center type of show that recaps Borough Hall meetings?
Wouldn't that be nice, right? Like, the high top chairs, and we sit there and talk about wax philosophically about big bellies and leaf collections and everything else. And I wouldn't be. I'd probably be more along the lines of pints and politics, and say, all right, we can host this at Kings Road or somewhere else. But no, I think that just maybe going out to. I think that if you look at Haddonfield, and it's probably true of just about any town, that the people who have been here for a long time probably learn how to get the information through unofficial channels, and then the people who have been here for a shorter period of time probably don't know how to find it. But then, you can kind of create a venue that's probably good for both. That you have some people get information through short vignettes. Some people are willing to go online and look through the meeting minutes and the agendas. And then there's probably some people that will find something in between.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem, right? Haddonfield is it's such a split between traditional, older generations with the new, younger. It's such an interesting split, and I would never pick up 100-page document. That's just the meeting. I don't even get through the first page of the meeting minutes half the time. But I am trying to get engaged in this stuff. But it's I'm of the newer generation, so I want it now, and I want it pretty, and I want it quick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but think about this as an example, right? I always there's a reason why USA Today is the number one, or used to be the number one selling newspaper in America. And despite the fact that they were in hotel rooms, which is probably the major portion of it, but they were good at the front page was, pictures and graphs and color. And then the rest of the pages were all, content. So I almost feel like there's got to be a model out there for that, where how do you make the front page short, to the point, quick vignettes, whatever else. And then if you want the real content, there's a hyperlink to take you there. Yeah. And I mean, even using the Haddonfield Happenings app, there's, we always said in business, the rule of 5, no more than 5 bullets, no more than 5 words per bullet. I think you could even do that as a summary of, here are the major topics of zoning board tonight. Boom, boom, boom. Here are the major topics of,
that'd be cool.
So people look at it and be like, yeah, none of this stuff affects me, or, oh, here's an interesting one. Yeah, maybe I'll dial in. And, I think there's some opportunity to do that.
Now, Frank, that's cool, man. I like that. That you could have a beer over and follow what's going along.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And each time, someone says, we're getting taxed too much, you can have a drink or something like that, you probably won't make it past 8 if the meeting starts at 7:30.
All right. I got some good ones for you, because I'm going to make sure that we break up some of the monotony here. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me, what is so special about this place for you?
I think that to me, it holds a kind of like a special. Even though I didn't grow up here, during wrestling season or leading up to wrestling season, and then when I was training for the military, I used to run from Second Avenue to my dad's office on Grove, and then back to Second Avenue, and and then kind of running between. So I mean, I literally spent most of my childhood and whatever else, running the mean streets of Haddonfield. So to me, it holds like a special place in my heart. I used to meet my dad for lunch at what is now the Bistro, and it was went through different names over there over time. And even though I grew up in the town next door, I always thought that Haddonfield was just the downtown Haddonfield, comparatively speaking to Station Avenue and Haddon Heights, was like kind of just night and day. Both very nice towns. If you look at the houses and whatever else, they're very similar in terms of size and the homes in town and the age of the homes, stuff like that. But Haddonfield just always had like a very unique, kind of look about it and feel about it. And I think that the people in town here are just very giving people and very welcoming people. And I compare and contrast that to Baltimore, for example. We lived there for 10 years. Like Baltimore, if you're not from Baltimore, like hardcore life for Baltimore is not going to let you in. Like it doesn't matter. You could live there for 20 some years. Like you weren't born there, you weren't raised there. You're not one of the folks in Baltimore. Whereas Haddonfield doesn't like that. I mean, they Haddonfield welcomes everyone, and I mean, even let a guy from Haddon Heights in here, and they treat me perfectly fine. So it should be. If I can make it here, anyone can make it here.
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting to me how even though there's so much modern, it still captures what I almost call the best parts of the Main Street old school towns with the July 4th parades and the celebration of baseball. And, it's awesome to be able to still capture that stuff even in 2025. And it's funny, like you want to hold on to the old, but kind of operate in the new. So it's like this really fine balance of things. It's really, really interesting. All right, Kim posted a question.
One quick thing about that though, I mean, and you guys are like getting close to that age. Like once you're, once your kids are of that walking age, that's a whole other thing of like, you'll realize how special this town is, or how special this town is when they're like 11 years old and walking by themselves downtown, and you feel comfortable letting them do that. It's just, it's just really a great experience.
Yeah, it's something it's crazy. It's almost unspeakable. I really is. Like you don't understand it until you're here, and I think to people on the outside is a certain perception, but when you come here, it's such an amazing community. It's people that are really come together to support and help one another and celebrate things that I think are just things that you're trying to hold on to. And it's awesome. It's cool. I grew up in Pennsylvania, so I didn't know any of this stuff. You're a South Jersey boy, Chris, so
No, I can echo that sentiment. We host a canned food drive on our block every year, and I'm consistently blown away by the generosity of the community members, the businesses in town that will all, volunteer their time. They'll show up. It's amazing. So yeah, it is a special place, Chad. It really is.
Yeah. All right. So Frank, I'm going to give you a question from Kim because she gave us one. I'm going to try and get through all this. Bear with me here. I have multiple general questions regarding Haddonfield, overdevelopment, critical preservation of historical properties, and the history of Haddonfield. Kim said she grew up here. I love this town. It has a lot to do with my questions. Okay, what is the next person? Okay, forget that part for a minute. We'll Haddonfield. Okay, so let's start with a couple things. I love this question, Kim. Thank you. Let's start with, will Haddonfield ever host town halls? I love that. I like that, Kim. Thank you for that.
So thanks, Kim. I have no problem with the town halls. I mean, the commissioners' meetings are supposed to be that outlet. And
you know what, Frank? You just brought up a good point. Let's do Haddonfield Government 101 for people that don't know, because there's a lot of people that don't come, right? So there's 3 commissioners, right?
Yes.
Give me the breakdown. There's 3 commissioners.
Yes.
There's 3 departments. They cover what areas, Frank? Tell me.
So it's essentially public works, public safety, and finance. And then I also have responsibility for like Shade Tree Commission, for example, and the Environmental Commission. And Dave Seidel has Rec Council. Colleen also has Human Relations Commission and Partnership for Haddonfield. So like we each have our own separate kind of departments, and then each different division.
You have
different,
three people, covering all of that.
Yep. Yeah.
It seems like a lot.
But each of those departments, they each have a chair, or in a case like Public Works, for example, in the police station, they have a full-time or several full-time people who are doing the day-to-day. So I mean, you have like supervision for it. I mean, there's a director of Public Works, and like once or twice a week, we'll have a call where we go over kind of what's happening and whatever else.
So each division head, for lack of a better term, runs their own areas, and then you guys come together as commissioners twice a month, right?
Yeah. So one is a working session, and one is a regular commissioners meeting. And each of those has public comment portions of it. So you'll have one that starts off at the beginning of it where it's public comment, and then there's public comment as it's tied to any of the ordinances or anything we're addressing in the meeting. So there's
what is the best way for somebody to get something done in this town? Is it to go to the public comments? Is it to interact with you privately? What's the most impactful way from your perspective?
So, I mean, there's all sorts of ways. So, what I usually do is, and people will reach out to me about things all the time, and they'll ask like, "Hey, how can I go about doing it?" A good example is last year we had the first ever Catholic Mass at the Library Point, and that started with a conversation like, "Hey, we would like to do this. Is this something that the borough would entertain?" And we said, "Yeah, sure." Like, I'm Catholic, so I'd say, "Yeah, no problem. This is how you go about doing it. You submit the paperwork for it. You put in if you're going to require, X number of people there. If you require different kind of accommodations, whatever the case may be. But just informing the people. Then that goes to a formal application. Then goes before the board, and we vote on it, and then that gets approved by it. I always say, and it's
in a small community, how do people usually engage you? Do they call you? Do they email you? What do you usually welcome?
So I mean, there's calls, texts, emails. Probably the least effective is like social media, because I'm not on it a ton, and it just sometimes it's just hard to kind of I will do my best to reply to it, but then it's a lot of times like, "Hey, this is a pretty detailed question. Would you mind shooting to me in an email, and then I can give you like a better answer?" And there's a good reason for that too. That is also Oprahable. So it's holding me accountable. If I give you an answer via email.
That big word in Haddonfield.
Hopefully we can change that. So
do you monitor some of the larger, I guess, what are they, Facebook groups in Haddonfield? It seems that, at least from our perspective, the bulk of the information is steered through Facebook groups like Haddonfield Parents. I think most people are consuming Haddonfield news through the Facebook groups. Do you monitor those groups at all? Are you a member of those?
So I am. It's probably like Haddonfield United, Haddonfield Parents, Haddonfield in the Know, Haddonfield Safe. Those are probably the ones that, if I had to guess, probably have like the largest followers, largest number of followers. So I would say that I do follow those like to some degree, but it's hit or miss, and it's hit or miss. If there's something developing on a day that I'm on the road all day visiting clients or something like that, there's a good chance I'm not going to see it, because like it's already kind of reaches crescendo and come back down, and then it's 8 o'clock at night, and I've scrolled through and say, all right, well, I guess I guess I didn't get bashed today on social media. As it turns out, I probably did. I just didn't know about it, which is fine,
But Frank, you want to know something? You want to know something that I think is valuable with those groups? I think it's a convenient way to get a pulse of what the people are feeling, whether it's good, bad, ugly, or true. Regardless of that, it's interesting that today you're able to look at those things and really get a vibe, because most of these people aren't the ones that are physically coming to meetings because their schedule's too busy. They can't get there, whatever. But you're at least able to kind of see what the town's talking about. It's interesting.
Or they find it unproductive, right? So they find it to attend the meeting. Well, maybe not unproductive, slower, right? So attending the meeting, you make a comment, and then you don't hear anything about it. Whereas if you're putting it up on Haddonfield Parents, you're getting 12 or 13 people commenting and discussing it, and it feels like it's being vetted in the comment section. And I know, from the SAFE perspective, we've had several critical posts, and I think it drives us to think deeply about what we're trying to put out, or the mission of SAFE. But it is productive in my eyes that you see a more immediate reaction to the proposed idea or the proposed comment, as opposed to the way.
And I would say, and this actually goes toward Kimberly's question. This is probably political suicide, bringing up like Bancroft, but I'll do it anyway. I never claimed to be smart, right? So no, but so if you think about like what happened with Bancroft over the last, like, let's call
do
it.
me a favor. I want you to presume that some people have no idea what the heck Bancroft is, because honestly, I have many friends in Haddonfield that would be like, I don't know what the heck is going on. Give us like the Sports Center. The Sports Center version, Frank, of Bancroft.
Yeah. So Bancroft is that large. Now it's a very large, like 13 acres or so piece of property on Kings Highway and Hopkins Lane. That for years, when I was growing up here, it was a support facility for both kids and adults. So it started out as kids, and then as adults for people who had special needs and they got required special care. And it was really a noteworthy organization that at one point probably employed about 300 or 400 people in Haddonfield, and had residents that lived there as well. And basically what happened is that just over time, it just outgrew older buildings, dilapidated buildings and stuff like that. So we can go back 12 years plus or so. Like, there was an opportunity to buy the land. That didn't happen. There was a developer that moved in and wanted to put a drug treatment facility there. That went over like a lead balloon. And then it's been like this kind of wrestling match of what to do with it over time. We sent it back out to as an RFP as an area of need of redevelopment back in 2000. I guess maybe early 2024 or so. And, we received, responses on it. And then there was a lawsuit about kind of, the handling of the responses. Again, there's a lot to go into it here, but, but the takeaway is when we had to we had a vote on it at the time. Colleen and I were the only two commissioners. David had not been elected yet. I basically said, you know what, I'm going to delay my vote, and I'd like to go back.
You were voting, and to dummy it down, you were voting on what? I know the answer. I'm just purposely sounding stupid.
So it was like, at the time, it was 120 units, of which 18 were affordable housing. It was
and what, backtrack that even more. Tell us all, what is this affordable housing thing, just to give context to it? What is it?
Yeah, so this goes back to the early 70s, the Mount Laurel doctrine, where in order to so basically they're trying to encourage affordable housing in different municipalities, and the reason why it's called Mount Laurel doctrine is it started in Mount Laurel. And and basically what it is, they're encouraging and even applying legal pressure and might to build affordable housing if you're going to develop a larger number of units.
And this began when? And this began when? Like this?
Like 1975 or so. And then there was like there were different kind of like gyrations of like, is it 1 for every 4 or 20%, or like they're trying to define like how this was over time.
So to dummy it down, and I play stupid all the time to benefit myself. It's to make sure that there's affordable housing in towns throughout South Jersey.
In New Jersey, yeah,
in New Jersey.
Yep.
In New Jersey.
Yeah.
Got it.
So for the most part, for years, Haddonfield was kind of immune because it's mostly a fully developed town. There's not like a ton of new construction. Really, the thing that kind of created more of an issue here was Bancroft. When you're dealing with what could be 100 to 200 units, now affordable housing is in play, and there's not really much of a way around it. So
again, stop, time out. So
yeah,
Bancroft becomes available as this. Now it's owned by who at that point? I want to understand it. Who's it owned by at that point?
So at the back that in last year, the early part of last year, the borough had reacquired the Bancroft.
So the borough acquires this big piece of land. And the thought is, who says, well, now that you do you then have to say, well, we're going to develop it into housing? And then someone says, well, you have to do affordable housing. That's what I'm trying to understand. Where did the steps come into play there?
So each year we're required by law. Actually, it's not each year. I think maybe every 2 years or 3 years. But you have to develop like your round of fair share housing, and identified within that are like RDPs, which are realistic developable properties, where you say that, like, so for example,
this wasn't stimulated by Bancroft. This is something that's always constantly there anyway. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, every municipality has to do this. Yeah, and you don't have a way around it. And you're basically saying that, like, if you live in Haddon Heights and you say, oh, in the outside chance that CVS were to close down, that property becomes available, I'm sure they've identified X number of units that can go into that property, formerly known as CVS in Haddon Heights.
But if a private person buys it, they don't have to do it, do they?
If a private person buys it and they want to, if they buy it and they want to make it into like 3 side-by-side condos, they don't have to, because you're under the minimum. But if you say, I want to build 5 side-by-side condos there, one of those units has to be affordable.
I understand now. So it's whenever a piece of land can potentially become up to X number of units. I understand that. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So back in November, I voted to kind of delay it, and I told the affordable housing folks, say, look, I'm going to spend the next few months here, and we said we'll have a decision by February, which they held us to. I said I'm going to collect input from residents and really, as much as possible, get the voice of the residents. So I put out on social media. I had probably about 60 people attend at Jersey Java, and I gave everyone a stack of Post-it notes. And I put on the walls, like, here are the 4 different topics we're going to discuss. And I've done this for years, like doing like fishbone diagrams and stuff like that at work, like trying to find like root cause analysis. I said, like, if we're going to talk about taxation, like, what do you want to pay in tax increases to get more open space? And people would say, I want to pay $250 or $500, $750. It was like different quadrants. Take a picture, pull them down. Next question, what would be ideal? Open space at Bancroft. People would say 100%, 50%, 10%, like, whatever. Like, put that in a quadrant. Asked a few other questions, and so I got like a good foundation there. Basically, 4 different focus areas, 4 different metrics that we were evaluating. Then I put that out to social media and say, this is what we got from this meeting. It was in like kind of a Pareto diagram. I said that, just like, you reply online, you can email me, you can like whatever, but I'm going to collect the information, which I did. And we got about maybe like 100 responses or so, maybe a little bit less than that. But it it kind of showed a trend that basically people are willing to pay a little bit more in taxes to get more open space. They wanted to maximize open space at Bancroft. They wanted less density at Bancroft, and they wanted 4 sale units versus 4 rent units. And so we took all that information, we worked with a developer, and it went from 120 units down to 98 units, which meant 12 of those 98 were affordable housing. It went from only 40% open space to 54% open space. It went from four individual buildings down to 3 individual buildings. And it became virtually, I mean, obviously the offerer is going to adjust their asking price if we're asking them to build less. But even given that all that, it still wound up being virtually tax neutral to the residents.
So I want to ask you some dumb questions on purpose.
Yeah.
Right. This is what I want to comprehend. So, did it even have, like, if Bancroft wasn't turned into anything of units at all, and it was just left open, my understanding was then you'd have to choose some other place. Is that accurate?
So
where was the pressure coming from? Like, I don't understand. I think I'm trying to understand that.
The Mount Laurel doctrine and the case law surrounding it provides a remedy for builders to enforce development as well. So if there's an opportunity, there is this outside exposure that the township's subject to, called the builder's remedy. So there is potential for that, which is why there's a pressure to make the decision, and it's to enforce the Mount Laurel doctrine.
And it's funny, guys. I don't play stupid because I'm stupid. I'm playing stupid to try and really for the past year as a resident. I'm so busy doing my kids stuff. Bancroft. What the heck is this Bancroft thing? And everyone's really upset about it. And I'm trying to really get a good grip on it. I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm trying to understand it. So if we had just said, hey, leave it like an open green space like they do in Manhattan, cool spot, whatever, dig it, whatever. Did we have to, like, what was the, I don't get it. So was there pressure to do something else at that point if we didn't do it?
So I would say that, like, by the time my administration was around, like, kind of like the toothpaste was already out of the tube. Like, it was already identified as an area of, in need of redevelopment. And so you had to do something.
So someone's putting pressure saying, hey, man, we need to do affordable housing somewhere.
Yeah. And here's and I'll ask Chris to jump in here if I misstate this, because, he's a JD and I'm just like a lowly MBA. So, he has one more year of school than I do, and he's infinitely smarter than I am. No, but the problem with, like, the immunity from the builder's remedy lawsuits is that it is designed to be very punitive. So at some point we identified Bancroft as an area that has RDP of 300 units because you could build 300 units there, for example.
Right.
So if you say, you know what, we're gonna fight the powers that be on this, and we're going to turn this into open space.
Right.
A builder could say, state of New Jersey, I'm going to help you meet your 400 affordable housing units you have to make. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build 300 units at Bancroft, and of that, 60 are going to be affordable housing, and oh, by the way, I'm just going to build the units. Haddonfield, you have to provide the infrastructure. You have to bring the utilities there, the piping there, the everything else there. I'm just going to build the units. And and then if you say, yeah, but we don't have enough room in our schools for that, they say, well, that's up for you to figure out, Haddonfield. Like, that's not our problem. We're just here to build units.
So there's pressure coming for that stuff. Okay.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, since January 1st of 2025, this year, there's 159 municipalities / towns that are now in some form of lawsuit with affordable housing over not making their rounds of obligations.
And basically, the strong arm is that if you don't do it at some point, there goes the indemnity, and you're screwed.
Yeah, and we have until May 12th. We're not out of the woods yet. We have until May 12th to finalize this round of our affordable
So May
housing.
12th is 2 days before the election.
One day before.
But if
that wasn't us doing. That was the court doing that. But I think what the court is saying is that, look, you're not going to punt and put this to the next administration. Like Frank Troy and company have to figure this out. So
I want to ask you something. I want to ask you your honest opinion. This is an authentic question. Why do you think people are so mad? Honestly, why are people so passionate about this topic? I went nuts about break-ins. I thought that was a not political issue. It was break-ins.
I think it's a couple of things. One is I think they view one thing, just because we had so many break-ins and indigent people and whatever else, like kind of moving into Bancroft, we elected to knock down all the buildings over there because it was becoming a safety issue. At some point, someone's going to get hurt or killed, or there's going to be a fire. I think once you knock down all those buildings, you're looking at like a nice plot of land. It's like, gee, it'd be great if you could do this here.
Right.
The problem is, like, whatever that this is getting very expensive. We already have something to the tune of like $13 to $15 million tied up into this property here, and you just can't keep throwing money at some point.
Yeah.
Something
has to be done. Here's a non-political answer. Something has to be done. Something
has to be done. And look, and I would say that like a lot of people are very passionate about open space, and rightly so. A lot of people don't feel like affordable housing is fair, and I mean, truth be told, I have even said this commissioners meeting, I'm not 100% in favor of affordable housing. I feel like there was a time where I left the military, and I was well educated. I had an MBA. I moved back in temporarily to Haddon Heights to figure out my next step. And part of the calculation of what that next step was, I got a nice offer down in North Carolina. The offers I was entertaining up here didn't pay exactly what I wanted them to. And my wife and I made the decision, like, look, it's expensive to live here. Why don't we just kind of, venture out, keep on the path that we are. Then if we want to come back here someday, which is exactly what we did. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's what America is all about, right? Like, you work hard, you invest, you make smart decisions, you take calculated risks, and sometimes those risks pay off and you reap the rewards. Sometimes those calculated risks don't, work out. And you have to kind of rebuild and stuff like that. And we've probably all been that, at some stage of our life. But I think that's part of the passion, is that there are people who are passionate about whether affordable housing should or should not be a thing. And, I think.
So it's the argument of it's one side of, should we have more affordable housing? And then it's the actual green space part itself, I guess. So it's two headed in that respect.
There's also one other thing. There's also one other thing too, is that you do have a lot of residents, and having gone door to door and talked to, hundreds, thousands of people, there are a lot of residents that don't want to pay more in taxes. And when you talk about more open space and all these things, I would say that when you're a younger person in town, I hate to generalize it, but I've lived this. When you're a younger person in town, you're more inclined to pay for the sports and the this and that because your kids are doing it. It's kind of like, when they turn 18 and they're out of the house, and like now in college, you're like, I don't want to pay for this anymore. So you have to kind of strike that balance of like, all right, well, what can we do to improve and enhance the spaces that we have, but also be cognizant of the fact there are a lot of people in town here that don't want to pay more in taxes. Their kids and their grandkids haven't been in school in years, and all they want to do is just keep living in their rancher and live on a fixed income and live happily ever after here in town.
Look, there's no doubt you have a tough job, man. I'm honestly, did you think it was going to be this tough? Did you think it was going to be this nuts?
I'm not sure what I thought it was going to be, quite honestly. The irony of it all is I'm actually, I think, like a pretty private and kind of introverted person. So as much as I like doing these things and talking to people, I like doing one-on-one conversations and stuff like that. Like, I don't like being the center of attention. I don't like doing the ribbon cuttings or whatever case may be. I think that has more to do with being a military officer, where it's just more about like your job is to take care of your people, and like you come last, and don't make it about you, make it about everyone else. Like part of that's like still kind of churning around in my head. I do enjoy it. I do. I love working on complex projects and working with issues and trying to help people. I mean, the little things, not to get corny about it, but each year, for example, when we do the leaf collection and we update that on the app every 2 days or every day, we say next 2 days, these are when the leaves are coming. I think that was a good enhancement to it. But for like the next week, we keep one of the trucks with the entire leaf rig kind of together, because inevitably what happens, you have people that kind of reach out to you. In a lot of cases, not to generalize, but they're probably people who are older. In some cases, like they're widows or widowers. They're not tech savvy, and like, I didn't know. It ended last week. I just hauled everything up to the curb. Is there anything you can do? That's the kind of stuff I like. Like, all right, well, let's send the truck out one more time to these locations that have asked, clean it up, and then it's like a victimless crime. The people have lived here for 50 years. They pay their taxes. The one time they ask for a favor, the borough should be able to accommodate. And that's the kind of stuff I like doing. And no one knows about it. It's just my own kind of makes me feel good, when I lay my head down at night. But I mean, that's how government should work, is to work silently in the background, but when people need a hand, work quickly to try and help resolve their issue.
And I think overall approachability is good too, Frank. Like, I think that, in general, no matter who you are, and I'm still newer in the town. I'm 5 years in now, but I still feel like I'm new, even though I'm technically not anymore. But I still learn more about people and how the town works. And part of you being connected to it is also having a good relationship with the people that run it. Chief Cutler is a phenomenal person. Yeah. I didn't know him at all until all these things happened with Haddonfield Safe. And Chris and I have had such a great time building a really good relationship with him. Above all, that actually is what I think stands out for us, Chris, is that we've been able to accomplish a lot together, but we've been able to do it because we've been able to build these relationships with the people that are running the town. And that's the reason, Frank, honestly, the summation of us bringing you here is that you're really approachable. You're a great person to talk to. You're deeply passionate. You're educated. You're more than capable. And I think it's great. This is not political. I don't care how much you guys want to spin this. It's really nice to see you're the type of person that's running our town.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple of comments for you. Sorry, Frank.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I also want to bring in Kimberly's comment. I don't want to backtrack. But it speaks to your passion question, Chad. And first and foremost, Frank, the way you collated that data with respect to citizens' responses and bankrupt, and then put it out on Instagram, I thought was an excellent way of communicating that information that's dense. It's hard to read when it comes out through the town mechanisms, but the way you put it in Instagram format, I thought it was excellent. I really did. I enjoyed, I don't know if this is the right word, but appreciated the way that information was disseminated. One of the Kimberly comment about overdevelopment, one of the chief concerns or complaints with the Mount Laurel doctrine is that doctrine's one of the effects of the doctrine is it promotes overdevelopment. It forces towns to develop units and draws more people into the town. And it really, the passion stems from the vantage point that you have. And anecdotally, my 7-year-old, we can see Tatum from my backyard. And being a walking town, it's one of the big things that we thrive. You mentioned it too, Frank, that you walk everywhere. And my son was subject to a lottery for Tatum. There was not enough spaces, not enough classroom seats for Tatum, and he didn't get in initially. Luckily, there were a few spots that had opened up prior to, but it was a stressful 3 or 4 months before we found out that he got in. So my passion was based on my vantage point, was that I'm near this Bancroft property. It's dilapidated. And, I guess this speaks to this public safety aspect too, is that we're concerned about traffic, or we're concerned about my 2 other children not being able to go to the school that they can walk to. Might not seem like a huge problem, but it would be something that we would raise, saying that this is a negative aspect of that forced development of that space. But I would want your comments on that overdevelopment issue.
Yeah, so as it applies to affordable housing, there's a couple different things here. As it applies to affordable housing, that is a concern, and I shouldn't say. I mean, just not just affordable housing, but the development of Bancroft. I would say that what I did was try to do the best and try and find a compromise. So I would say, as it applies to density and traffic, it is still better than what it was when Bancroft was active and fully functional. And I'm 50. I'll be 52 in June. So like I remember it as a kid where and even Kingsway Learning Center and stuff like Kings Highway was kind of a mess to get from where I grew up to to let's say Grove or something like that because you had so many buses and cars and stuff like that. So definitely my focus was trying to reduce the density and thereby the number of units and thereby the number of cars traversing Hopkins Lane each day. The other thing, and the master plan just addressed this, is encouraging to keep more of the existing structures in town instead of putting up new construction houses and that sort of thing. And the reason being is that that is also contributing to like stormwater management issues and stuff like that. And you also don't want to lose, part of what makes, or a major part of what makes Haddonfield a beautiful place is, older homes and even diversity of the homes. Like, there's, people I think of like Center Hall Colonials and stuff like that. I live our house was built in 1927, I think, but it's a craftsman style. And we used to live in Southern California. And like, I love craftsman style houses. And when this one came on the market, we were living in Baltimore and Deb was working. I even text her and say, hey, Carly and I are driving up. I'm going to buy a house today, which is exactly what we did. So I think that the master plan that will turn into then action items for both the planning board and the zoning board that will put more teeth in place to both provide both like a carrot and a stick for people who want to redevelop in Haddonfield, but probably encourage more conservative and smarter development in Haddonfield to keep the houses that we have.
So I don't want to go too terribly long with this, only because I think at some point we'll lose beyond an hour. But I do, Frank, I do want to at least come up and cap this off with saying, obviously, there's a timeliness to us doing this. And, you're seeking a new term because you obviously feel like there's some stuff that you still have to finish, right? So what is it, I guess, for lack of the easiest way to put it, what would be the icing on the cake for you as you were to go out to the sunset and leave your mark as a legend in Haddonfield? But tell us what that looked like for you.
Legend. Now you really are turning this into like a sports center kind of. What would it take for us to have a lot?
I always try and make stuff interesting because we could spend 3 hours and I'd sit there and I'd be like, only thing I heard was Bancroft.
Yeah. All right, so I won't make it about Bancroft. Nah, so the first time I ran on just doing something with dilapidated properties in Haddonfield. So yes, Bancroft is one of them. I think we beat that one to death. But you also have Boxwood Hall, which is on Haddon Avenue, right across the street from the library and kind of across the street from the Friends School, and Lulworth Hall, which is that mansion as you're kind of going into Bancroft, right near the high school. So I'd like to get those under contract, which were in Boxwood Hall goes before the planning board on Tuesday. So that would be like the official launch of like, it's getting real and now construction can start there more or less. Lulworth would be under a contract, Bancroft, obviously. So I think having those properties taken care of, continue with some of the work that we did with the stormwater management. And that's a whole other, if we've been on here for an hour and 10 minutes, that's another hour and 10-minute conversation. But I think there's improvements that we can make using grants and leveraging state dollars but also federal dollars for that to help improve some of our stormwater management in town here, because it's a very complex issue that really goes all the way to the Army Corps of Engineers, because the outfalls are tidal bodies of water. So it's not as easy as just.
Were you always a public works geek, Frank?
No, well, when I was on a ship, when I was on a ship, you had to earn your surface warfare pin. So I just learned how a ship works, which is essentially a floating city. So I just kind of like geeked out with the engineering of things and just how things work. So
you're too smart for me, Frank. That's the problem.
No. I have a bunch of buzzwords that are scrolling above my laptop. I just keep reading them off, and his stormwater.
So I just asked you to tell me how you want to walk out of Haddonfield as a legend, and you just gave, and I'm like, whoa! I just thought like I want to make a difference. I want to meet more people, kiss some babies. I don't know, Frank. Give me
well, I mean, obviously, I want to do that, No, but I think the final thing is that I think there are improvements that can and should be made with, like, I would say, all the areas of.
What's the one thing, if you were to walk away from as commissioner and be upset if Frank didn't do it to leave your mark? What's the Frank mark? What are you leaving for us, man?
I think it's more personal. I think I want to be remembered as someone who listened, who cared, and and always did what was right for the residents, even if it wasn't the popular decision, even if it was it required getting bashed in the court of public opinion and stuff like that, because nothing I do is out of personal gain or other than the fact that my boss lives in town. I don't do business with anyone in Haddonfield. This is just I want to be known and remembered as someone who really cared about the residents and cared about the town and set out every day to make it a better place to live, and one of the premier towns, if not the premier town in New Jersey. And quite honestly, we're kind of close anyway. And I don't need to have my name on any sort of building anywhere or whatever. I'm perfectly fine being a footnote in the meeting minutes saying Frank voted yes on this. And if everything goes swimmingly well, then I mean that will be my own magnum opus, is that everything is running fine and I'll have to jump back in and run again. So I think that's probably
something's fueling the passion, Frank. Something's fuel. Listen, man, the one thing I know is you're not diving into all this muck if something's not tickling your fancy, man. Something there is just like pushing you. So that's what I want to know, Frank.
So what's making me do all this?
Yeah, Frank. Not that you want people to think you're. Come on, give me it, Frank. Why are you doing all this, man?
You know what? To be honest with you, it's all about you. It's about the people on the call here, the people who joined tonight, and there's a lot of great people in town here that will reach out and say nice things about you, or reach out and inquire about more information. And I think that's probably the biggest area of opportunity, is just that, is to find ways to better communicate with people in the 21st century, and maybe if all like the more like the hard accomplishments aside, so stormwater management, stuff like that, maybe the soft accomplishments, if we can find a way where every single person in town has a very good feel for what's going on, the reasons for the decisions, the pros and cons, what was properly vetted, and why we went about doing it, to a point where people can say, okay, well, I don't agree with it, but the decision making, the approach seemed to make sense. So I guess I'll just kind of grin and bear it, or say, hey, that was a great decision, and the information was provided accordingly. So I think that's a huge area of opportunity for us. And unfortunately, I'm not like a super strong tech guy. I think I'm good enough, but folks like yourself that clearly are smart about this than I am, we can reach out to you and say, hey, how can we do this better?
Well, this was fun. I hope it went differently than some of the other things you've gotten involved with. Chris, what do you think, man? Our first Haddonfield talks. What do you think?
I like it. I think it was it's helpful. I like the curious approach you took. I think I guess we could probably go on another hour about public safety stuff. I think I like this form of communication because you get to know somebody, and there's only so much of an air you could put on for an hour, and you can't keep it up. So you really get to know somebody by sitting down and talking, and I sincerely appreciate your time.
Yep. So here's my offer to you guys. Since I wanted to have this over, like a drink and all that, but you guys said no. And I'm an Irishman. I'm an Irishman, so I was offended by that. But I'm going to give you guys a pass. But so Monday at Kings Road, which is Cinco de Mayo, we're going to have from 7:00, on. We're going to have a open bar of sorts there. So you guys are invited. The folks here on the call are invited. So any questions I didn't answer tonight?
Whoa. All I heard was open bar. Did you say open bar?
Yeah. I mean, within reason, right? Like, at 10 or 9:30, whatever the last call is. But we'll, that's a chance for you, for you, anyone on the call here to ask me questions, introduce yourself to me, get caught up. We haven't seen each other in a while. And yet another form of communication there.
Cool. Dig it, man. All right. Well, Haddonfield, I know you're out there, the millions of you watching this evening. We appreciate your sustained attention for 1 hour and 10 minutes.
We did it.
We'll be happy to post the replay on our YouTube channel and get some reels out to you. Thank you for watching the first edition of Haddonfield Talks, presented by Haddonfield Safe. We will see you guys soon. Have a good night, Haddonfield.
See you, everyone.
Thank you.